everyone, welcome to DIY with Nancy. Today I'm going to share my recipe for my version of canelas. Now canelas are a Portuguese version of a cinnamon bun with a little twist and no icing, but they're so delicious, simple to make, and I'm going to show you how to make my version of canelas, which is really well known in my parents' hometown or island of São Miguel Azores back in Portugal. So stay with me and watch how to make canelas step by step. The first step in making the canelas, you're going to activate your yeast. I have 1 cup of warm milk, 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar, and 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast. Now to activate the yeast, I'm placing the sugar in the milk and then the active dry yeast. Stir it together to combine and make sure that it's well mixed in the warm milk. Once I have it mixed in well, I'm going to set aside the yeast to let it activate, and we're going to move on to the next step. For the next step, I'm going to use my stand mixer. You will need your whisk attachment and you also need your hook attachment. Now we're going to start off by placing the ingredients in the mixer, and I'm going to start off with 2 large eggs. Next, I'm adding half a cup of granulated sugar. Next, I'm placing half a teaspoon of salt. And the last ingredient before I start mixing is 4 tablespoons of unsalted melted butter. Now to mix the first set of ingredients, I'm going to add my whisk attachment. And then I'm going to place the mixture on high speed and let it mix for 1 minute. I've been mixing it for 1 minute. I'm going to stop the mixer and I'm going to now add my next ingredient. So for the next ingredient, I have my activated yeast, which we mixed up earlier, and you can see it's bubbled and it's activated. I'm going to pour it in to the mixture, and there's still some activated yeast in my measuring cup. I want to make sure I get it all and add it to my liquid mixture. That should be good. And now that I have my activated yeast in the liquid mixture, I'm just going to mix it in for 20 seconds on low speed. Once the activated yeast is mixed in, at this point I'm going to remove the whisk attachment. And now at this point, I'm ready to add my last ingredient, and that is 4 cups of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to add the flour in 2 parts. I'm adding half first, then placing my hook attachment. I'm going to place the mixer on a low speed and let it mix for about 30 seconds. And now I'm going to add the second part of the flour. So I'm just going to place it into the mixture. Place the mixer on a medium speed and let it mix for approximately 2 to 3 minutes, or until you see that your dough has formed and it starts pulling away from the edges of the bowl and the dough just ends up sticking to the middle hook. And that's how you know your dough has come together and it's ready. Now once your dough is ready, you'll end up with a very stretchy dough. You'll see it's not very sticky, and it's a really easy dough to work with, especially when you're forming the canelas. Now let's move on to the next step. Now for the next step, I have the dough and I have a bowl which I'm going to be placing the dough in. But before I do, I'm going to place about 1 teaspoon of all-purpose flour in the bottom of the bowl so the dough doesn't stick. And I'm just going to remove the dough, form it into a ball, just as I'm doing here. You're going to place it in the center of your bowl. Take a tea towel, cover it, set it aside, and wait until it doubles in size. It's been about 1.5 hours, and the dough has doubled in size. It looks perfect, nice and fluffy. It's covered the bowl. Look at that. Perfect. And now I'm going to just set it aside for a minute while we prepare the next set of ingredients. Now for the next step, I'm going to prepare the mixture for the canelas. I have here 1 cup of brown sugar. And to that, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon. And here on the side, I have a couple tablespoons of vegetable oil, which I may need to dip my hands to roll the dough. So we're going to mix together the cinnamon with the brown sugar. Make sure it's well combined so that way we can roll the dough for the canelas. Now for the next step, I'm going to prepare the dough for the canelas. I'm going to start off by removing the dough right out of the bowl. See how easy it was to come out? Now you're simply going to take the dough and roll it into a log, just as I'm doing here. And you can stretch it out as you're rolling it. Now I'm going to use my pastry scraper to cut the dough into small pieces. Generally, you can get anywhere from 6 to 8 canelas. I'm going to get something in between there because I like the canelas nice and big and fluffy. Okay, so I have myself about 7 canelas, and I'm going to start off by rolling the dough into a ball and then forming it into a log. And you can see that the dough does stretch as you're forming the log. And then once you have it formed, you're just going to set it aside and continue on to the next one. Now I'm going to continue forming the logs, and I'll show you the next step. Now for the next step, I have here a baking tray with some parchment paper, which is where I'm going to be placing my canelas once they are formed. And I'm going to show you how to make them. So I'm going to start off by placing the brown sugar and cinnamon mixture that we combined earlier. I'm going to place it onto my working surface because this is where I'm going to be rolling the logs of dough. And you want to roll it right into the sugar and cinnamon mixture. So I'm going to take the log and just simply roll it. Make sure it's well coated, just as I'm doing here. Now once I have the log coated with cinnamon and sugar, I'm just going to clear my surface. It's going to be a lot easier to twist. I'm going to take both my hands opposite direction, and it's going to twist it, just as I'm doing here. So you're going to opposite direction, both hands. And you could do the twist whatever way you find easier, but for me, this is it. Once you have your log twisted, you're going to overlap the ends and tuck in one in the middle. And voila, there you have it. Your canela is formed, just like that. So once you have it formed, you just place it right onto the baking tray, and we're going to move on to the next one. Oh, one more thing. Here I have 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and I'm going to be using this to just dip into my hands and mix it together. It just makes it easier for the cinnamon to grab onto the dough. So I'm going to just, again, roll the log onto the cinnamon. And now I'm going to twist it. So both hands opposite direction, just as I'm doing here. Now once you have your log twisted, you're going to take both ends, overlap the top to the bottom, and then take the top piece, tuck it into the center hole, and there you have it. Your canela is formed just like that. Now for the next step, the canelas are ready for a second rise. I'm going to take a tea towel, cover them for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then they'll be ready to be baked in the oven. At this point, I'm going to preheat my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now here are the canelas after the second rise, and now they're ready to go in the oven. I'm going to place the tray on the top rack in the oven, and I'm going to bake it at 350 degrees for 25 minutes, and I'll show you what they look like when they're ready. And here are my canelas out of the oven. It smells so good in this kitchen. I'm going to let them cool for about 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm going to break into one and show you what they look like inside. Now this canela is still warm. It smells so good. And I can't wait to bite into it. But look how soft it is. And enough with the talking. Let me break into it, show you what it looks like. And here you go. Perfect. My canelas are soft, fluffy, not too sweet, and very delicious. And that was my recipe for my canelas. Now my one tip for you on this recipe is when you're baking the canelas in the oven, you want to place the baking tray on the top rack, because when you roll the canelas, or the dough rather, the whole bottom of the canela has sugar and you want to avoid it from getting really dark or burning. So I place it on the top rack and I get a beautiful color. They come out nice and fluffy, delicious, and this whole kitchen smells like cinnamon. It smells so good in this house. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed my recipe for canelas. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks so much for watching. Take care.